This meeting of the Anderson Township Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. This board was established pursuant to Section 519.13 of the Ohio Revised Code by the Anderson Township trustees to provide administrative relief to any person or entity adversely affected by the Anderson Township zoning resolution. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Rick Oversmith.
Present.
Brian Elk.
Here.
Brett Hayes.
Present.
Brian Johnson.
Here.
And Steve Neighbors.
Okay. Thank you for coming to this meeting. Please be aware that the meeting is audio and videotaped and may be carried live on local cable television. Our procedures are as follows. A summary of the appeal is presented by the staff, and then the appellant has the opportunity to present its case. Board members may then ask questions of the appellant. After that time, all persons supporting the appeal will be permitted to testify one at a time after being recognized by the chair. When those persons supporting the appeal are finished, those opposed to the appeal will then be permitted to testify and/or ask questions of the board after being recognized by the chair. All persons wishing to testify, whether for or against an appeal, may do so only after being sworn in. When testifying, each person come forward to the podium, pick either one. Speaking to the microphone, state your name, address, and affiliation to the case. Persons testifying are limited to, generally limited to 4 minutes, but the board can grant additional time. All testimony is to be given to the board, and no comments to the audience, please. The board will hear only new, non-repetitive evidence or question. Should someone wish to show support of previous testimony, they may do so by just stating their support. There's no need to restate what the person in front of you just said. Now, all persons who may give testimony this evening, please stand. Raise your right hand. When in doubt, stand. Doesn't hurt to do it. That way we won't have to do it again. Swear or affirm. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Any changes to tonight's agenda?
We will not be able to approve the minutes of September 5th. We do not have a quorum for that.
Okay. But we do have the minutes of August the 1st. I think there was just one revision, or we got them?
Yes, you emailed me one change.
One change, just a typo thing. Any other comments or questions about the minutes? Motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Case 18-2013 BZA, 7655 Coldstream Drive, one and the same property that we dealt with in August in front of the same 4 people of the board.
Yes, this should look fairly familiar to you all. So there has been a slight change to this request that appeared in August. As they got along further in the design process, the size of the structure, which was initially 22 by 30, is now 24 by 33. Even though it is just a few feet, because of that change, the applicant does have to reappear in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals. So here's a location map. This is the property and general location where the garage is being proposed. It is a panhandle off Coldstream, and it does have frontage along this private drive. An aerial photo of the site. It's zoned AA residence, and all of the surrounding zoning is AA residence as well. The tract is approximately 1.2 acres, and it does have 20 feet of frontage on Coldstream because of this panhandle here. Topography is that there is a steep ravine in the middle of the property, and it currently contains a single-family home. So here's a proposed site plan showing the location of the garage. The applicant is proposing to construct a detached garage size 24 feet by 33 feet. The variance request is because this is located in what we consider to be the front yard area. Because it is a shared driveway with more than 3 lots coming off of that shared driveway, this portion of the lot is the front yard. Some photos of the proposed elevation drawings. The existing home was constructed in 1980, and an addition was added in 1997. You heard this case on August 1st, 2013, and prior to that, in 2001, there was another case for a detached garage at this location that was never constructed. The property has since changed ownership. Some photos of the surrounding conditions. Staff is of the opinion that the variance is not substantial. The proposed location of the accessory structure will be within the front yard area when viewing the property from the private drive. However, it should not be visible from Coldstream Drive. Staff feels that the essential character of the neighborhood will not be substantially altered, and adjoining properties will not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance requested. There's existing vegetation that should serve as an adequate buffer between properties and other homes. And the area also have accessory structures in somewhat atypical locations. The variance should not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services, and the property owner's predicament cannot be feasibly obviated through some method other than a variance. The new structure is proposed to be located at the end of the existing drive and cannot be located on the other side of the property due to that steep ravine.
Any questions for staff?
I have one, Mr. Chairman, a procedural question. When we approved this on August the 1st, we approved it with conditions. Is this a whole new look at it, or can these conditions carry forward?
The same conditions could carry forth to this decision.
Okay, okay. So we don't have to go back and review them and restate them?
No, we could just take that same resolution and give it this case number.
Very good. Thank you.
Questions? I did have a question. I left at home my copy of the resolution that we adopted in August. Do you have one
Yes.
here that you can share with us? Okay, thank you.
Same question.
Same question. I
Yeah.
just didn't bring it
Good.
physically with me. Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to come forward, or anybody? Go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening. Randy Scher, homeowner at 7655 Coldstream Drive. I apologize to be back here less than 60 days later. Slight adjustment to the size of the garage with an extra, I think, 2 feet deeper and 3 feet wider, just to maximize the utilization of that space. And really, other than that, everything is pretty much identical.
The setbacks are the same, aren't they, for this new structure?
Correct.
Thank you.
I believe we were struggling the last time because we didn't have the site plan with this level of detail. Is that?
Yes, that's
Yes, that's correct.
So this shows we're at 5'7" on the side. Would that comply with our side setback?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that technically the front? Is that what we're giving the?
Right.
Okay,
yes,
so
but
that
as
would
an
be,
accessory
If it had been
structure.
inside.
I understand, yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense.
I have no other questions. Brian, any questions?
No questions.
We had all this 60 days ago from the same floor. We're pretty fresh on it. One other question is, I mean, with the bigger spaces, the use changed. I think the last time the testimony was just a garage, it wasn't other things.
Yeah, just a garage, and then the other side is heated. The second garage is heated, so it allow for, I got a collector car and that sort of thing, so
So it is the same purpose?
same purpose as we talked about, yep.
And we can incorporate our
Same conditions as
information
last
from
time.
the last one. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Sorg.
Thank you so much.
Would anybody else like to speak in support of this application? Would anybody like to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing on case 18-2013 BZA, and we'll deal with a resolution after we hold the other public hearings. Thank you very much. Okay, case 19-2013 BZA, Pinnacle Entertainment. Would you like to present the case?
Sure.
please?
So our applicant is Bob Hurt on behalf of Pinnacle Entertainment, or P&K Ohio LLC, which is the property owner. This is River Downs, which is 6301 Kellogg, and it's zoned H Riverfront. There are several variance requests in front of us this evening. Our zoning resolution places a cap on wall signage for any commercial property at 500 square feet, regardless of the size of that structure. We also place a cap on a variable message sign to be 50% of that, so 250 square feet, again, no matter the size of the structure. And we do limit window signage to occupy 50% of a window space. So here's a general location map. This is, of course, the previous River Downs facility, with a new facility being under construction currently. The site is approximately 98.3 acres and has 2,965 feet of frontage along Kellogg. There is a decrease in grade from north to the south, and this is located partially within the floodplain. An aerial photo again of the previous facility. So this is kind of a hectic looking site plan. This does include all signage on the site. What the variance request is focusing on is wall signage that will be visible along Kellogg here and from surrounding properties on this side of the structure. There is a variable message sign located in this area.
Excuse
Hold
me,
on,
Allison.
slow down on this
I'm
part,
having-
Allison.
Yeah, and I'm having just a little bit of trouble hearing you as
Okay.
well. I'm sorry.
No problem. There is a variable message sign located here, and this request is focusing primarily on the wall signage on this facade of the structure as well as this side. So here are several elevation drawings of the proposed signage. The variance request is to have a total of 4,935 square feet of signage along this facade as well as this one. We do not take into consideration signage in this area that would not be visible from surrounding properties. And we also do not take into consideration things like the on-site directional signage, notating what row of the parking lot you're in, things like that. So that all is included on this drawing. However, we're only looking at the wall signage in this area as well as the window signage in this area. So the request for the wall signage is about 25% of the Kellogg facade, which is similar to the 20% that smaller commercial structures are permitted to have. And then the variable message sign is a total of 1,890 square feet, and that is a total of 38% of the total wall signage, whereas smaller commercial structures are permitted to have up to 50% of that. And then the third variance request is for window signage. In this bottom graphic, you can see that there is a graphic being proposed to occupy windows in this area. It's proposed to be transparent, and it will allow light into the building. However, our zoning guidelines stipulate that only 50% of a sign or 50% of a window can be occupied by signage. We don't typically take into consideration transparency. It's just not something that's come up to us before. So we decided to go ahead and bring that before you all as well.
And, excuse me, Allison, where on the drawing is that exactly?
In this location.
Thank you.
So our site history on this is fairly brief because new construction began at the beginning of this year. Previous variances were granted for the new facility in late 2012, and that was for the height of fencing along Kellogg, as well as for the overall height of the main structure, which had to have a finished floor elevation outside of the floodplain. Here are several proposed elevations of signage in the area, including the LED display there. Proposed elevations of what the structure will look like. This top one will be as though you were on Kellogg looking south towards the facility. And then this one will be as though you were looking west towards the River Downs and Coney Island. This would be that facade.
So those are the two sides that have the variances, the
Correct. Right.
north side and the east side
East side of
of the
the
building.
structure.
Okay, thank you.
Here are several pictures of the surrounding property. This is looking northwest from the proposed location of the variable message sign. This is looking southeast. You can see our trail here looking at the structure and approximately the location of the variable message sign. This is looking directly north from that location. And then we also included one from the south side of the track looking north at the site as well as surrounding conditions to try and put into perspective where everything is located. So there are 3 separate variance requests in front of you. The first one for the overall size of wall signage. Staff feels that the variance is not substantial. While the total square footage of wall signage does exceed the maximum cap at 500 square feet, it will only occupy 25% of the total facade area, which is similar to the amount allotted to smaller structures. Staff feels that the essential character of the neighborhood will not be substantially altered and that adjoining properties will not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of this variance requested. The property to the north, which will have the direct most view of the proposed wall signage, is owned by the applicant. The variance would not affect the delivery of government services. The spirit and intent of the zoning requirement would be upheld and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Due to the very large size of the structure, the proposed signage is able to be placed so that it does not overwhelm the structure or detract from architectural features. The second request is for the variable message sign size. Again, staff felt that this variance request was not substantial as it only takes up 38% of total signage, which is less than the 50% allotted to smaller commercial structures. The essential character of the neighborhood, again, would not be substantially altered, and adjoining properties will not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance requested. Properties to the east and west will not be able to view the sign from their respective areas, and the property to the north, which has the most direct view of this sign, is again owned by the applicant. The sign is proposed to meet all other requirements of variable message sign, including the frequency of the message changes, as well as the brightness of the screen. The variance should not affect the delivery of government services, and the spirit and intent of the zoning requirement will be upheld and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Due to the very large size of the structure, again, this proposed signage is not going to overwhelm the structure and will not occupy a significant portion of the wall area. The final variance request in front of you is for the window graphics. And staff felt that the property's use could be enhanced through the inclusion of these graphics. The imagery that is used can help establish a sense of character for the structure, as well as a look into the site's history as a racing facility. Staff felt that the essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, and adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance requested. The window graphics are of varying transparency and will still allow light into the area. The variance would not affect the delivery of government services. And finally, the spirit and intent of the zoning requirement will be upheld and substantial justice done by granting the variance. The window graphics would not be used to convey advertising messages, but rather to enhance the sense of place of the facility. The transparency of the images will help reduce the effects of direct sunlight while still allowing for occupants of the structure to view the outdoors. I'm sure you have questions for me because that's a lot going on.
That is a lot. Which graphic shows what the variable message sign's going to look like?
That is this one there. It doesn't look very great. I can tell on big screen.
Just seeing if we have a colored drawing of it or something. Is that the only drawing we
That's
have?
It's page 16.
Page
Other
6.
than the
E16.
rendering of what it would look like on the structure.
Where's it at on
All the way in the back of the package.
there? I got E16, I'm saying where is that
Oh,
variable message?
I think it is that one.
Yeah, can you bring up the overall site plan? This is EO4, is that correct? Maybe we
So
can
you think
ask the
it's that
applicant
one?
some of these.
This is EBS E004, which is
It's right here, I think. It's it.
this.
Is it this?
No, it's the next over, isn't it? BS 004.
This one's EWS, that one's
All right, so we're gonna ask the applicant to explain that
Sure.
to us a little bit.
It may help.
It's going to be on the building, though,
It is
correct?
mounted on the building. It would be visible from the north elevation, and this is a depiction of that.
Oh, it's
I see.
that yellow one there?
Yes.
Okay. And so looking at that, that's a good one for me to look at. Could you take your cursor and just kind of circle all the signs we're talking about that would require a variance, obviously?
Sure.
The
So
changeable
for
message one.
the overall wall signage, this as well as these two are not variable message signs. They are just wall signs. This is the variable message sign. And then down here on this east elevation, this sign is not a variable message sign, just a wall sign.
But that requires a variance. What about the two right above it there?
So these on the west elevation would be visible from the parking lot, but should not be visible from surrounding properties that would,
So those two are not applicable.
as well as any signage on the rear of the building here. You can see smaller versions of these banners.
Yep.
They're also not visible from surrounding properties.
And when you add up all the signs, it's the 4,900?
No, that 4,900 square feet does not include the stuff on the south side of the building or on the western portion that do not face surrounding properties.
So as far as that picture goes, we're concerned about the top picture and the
This one.
third one. Gotcha.
Questions for staff?
Two questions. Allison, I understand what the adjacent properties are, but is there any residential property anywhere in the area? I don't think that there is, but I wanted to check.
No, there's a residential neighborhood to the east of this area. It's most directly adjacent to the new barns, but not to the north of the new facility.
At least not directly across it. Up the hill and over
Yes.
a ways there is, but that's the closest residential.
Right,
then.
and there's also Alter Crest is to the northwest.
And still well away.
Right.
Yes, okay. Second question is procedurally, do we want to tackle all of these at the same time, or are we acting on one at a time?
You can make 3 separate motions, or you can combine them into one, whatever's
But
easiest
we'll
for
hear
you.
testimony on all three of
Yes.
them at the same time. Good, thank you.
The variable message sign, I'm just trying to get a feeling for the size of that sign rather than just as it is relative to the new building.
Yes.
It's about 1,800 square feet. Now, is a typical billboard about 3,000 square feet, do you know?
Yes.
Okay.
No questions?
I don't have any more.
Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to come forward and state your case or answer any questions we might have? Anybody here?
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Kaufman, Vice President and General Manager of Riverdowns, 6301 Kellogg Avenue.
And my name is Bob Herr. I'm with Corporate Pinnacles Design and Construction Group.
Okay. Anything you'd like to add to the presentation by staff?
What I would consider is, would respectfully consideration of the approval of our request, and I do appreciate you taking the time to take a look at this. I can answer any questions you might have as well.
You might have to walk us through a little bit on the site plan to make sure that we're understanding the exact location. I think there was a question about on the variable message board, which is EWS E04, is that right?
EBS.
EBS E04. I see. EBS E04. So, Allison, can we kind of highlight that one with your little pointer and make sure that folks,
Yes, it's so much easier to look at it in front of you on the street. It's in this location.
yes. Is that showing up there?
There you go. After a little while of not moving, it disappears.
So that's the location of the variable message board?
That's correct, yes. It would be just to the east of our main entrance and mounted on the building facade.
And it faces a little bit, what, is that northwestish?
Almost
that
due
due
north.
It
north?
might actually be
Due
due
north. Due
north.
north.
Yeah,
Yeah.
since Kellogg's at an angle.
And what's the size on that? I know it's 1890 square feet. Can you give me some
Yeah, it's a-
dimensions? I'm sure it's in here somewhere.
70-foot wide by 27-foot tall.
So the signs are really large, but of course the building's quite large as well. Can you tell us a little bit, you both have expertise in the gaming industry. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with these size signs, why they're necessary? What's the thinking there?
Well, without question, it has to do with advertising the different venues, the different type of offerings that will be at the facility when it's in use. Size-wise, our designers have come up with these sizes as that they're proportional to the size of the building, and they adequately portray the message that's being represented. Given the fact that you're on Kellogg Avenue, we looked for not just one location, but a couple of locations because the proximity of the building is somewhat close to Kellogg. I don't mean to say it's on top of it, but it's a little bit closer, so you're not able to see the visual from far away. So given the speed on Kellogg, we thought that the opportunities represented on these drawings here today best represent and best locate where our messaging for the facility should be.
Is there any visibility to 275 with regard to these signs we're looking at tonight?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Would you say that this, in your experience in the gaming industry, are these typical type signs for this kind of facility, or does it vary based on the particular facts of a given site? I mean, you know, when I see a gaming facility, I tend to think of large signs, splashy signs, stuff like that, but is there more to it than that?
No, there absolutely is not. As a matter of fact, it's quite contrary to what you might see on the Strip in Las Vegas. As Allison had pointed out, and as the elevations represent, our static signs are really just that. They're more of a vinyl stretch type sign that are wall mounted on the exterior of the building with uplighting that would be shown on them. The LED reader board sign would be a variable message sign that certainly adheres to the frequency of changing out the message, and it's there to advertise any particular promotion that we may have going on. Obviously, the horse racing events and it's, you know, et cetera. So any type of activities that we would have going on the site, that's what the LED sign is for. Very similar to how you see the billboard signs today. A lot of those have gone from being static signs to being these variable message signs so that you can get more information on it in a much more economical fashion.
Are there any issues with the changing message sign? It's like a giant television, I presume, about brightness and glare off-site?
Not to my understanding, and as Allison had alluded to, we are within the brightness specifications of the ordinances that you currently have.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hayes, any questions?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
You tell me if I'm wrong, but the static signs, you've designed the signs so that they advertise and add to the building enough to where you convey your message, but not so large that they take away from the aesthetics of the building. And the static ones are more for just the aesthetics. The variable message one is mostly the advertising.
Yes, they would all certainly advertise to some extent.
Right.
The static signs may be changed out quarterly. Obviously, the variable message sign changes for whatever frequency and the different messages that may be given on more of a, you know, what's happening on a weekly basis or daily basis.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the static signs, we want to make sure that we celebrate the history of racing, live racing at Riverdown, so a lot of horse images.
And I would add that the images you see aren't necessarily the ones that will be on there. It's just representative of what could be on there.
A question for you. Is that your only question, Brian?
Yeah.
Question for you on the window graphics. The staff report indicated that it would not be used to convey advertising messages on the window graphics. Is that the case? I mean, how do you...
That's correct.
How do you distinguish between
well, it's
showing
interesting.
some history of River Downs and...
Right. The way that's a shrink wrap type material that gets put on the window system. It's a curtain wall type window system. I'm sure you've seen them elsewhere. I don't have any an example of it locally here, but I'm sure you've seen them on other buildings. But with that said, it's, when we were talking to Allison originally about this window graphic that's on there, we were at one time really considering it artwork, because it's really to be on the glass, the sun shines through it, and the images that you see on there, although they may not be the exact ones, as Kevin alluded to, it is going to speak that whole window wall itself with this shrink wrap, semi-transparent, translucent image that's going to be on there, is going to be most representative of the harsh race history that is at River Downs. So it's intended to be more artwork, but to attain that, we do it by using this window wrap, shrink wrap type material that goes on the window system.
But we're not going to see a situation where that shrink wrap gets switched out in 3 years and
And it says Coca-Cola, no.
advertises Bacardi rum or whatever it might be.
No, sir.
Okay. The kids' favorite drink.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question
Yes.
on the windows. If it were not for the sense of place drawings on the windows, you would have some other filtering material there because the sun will probably come in there too strong. Is that what's going on with the windows?
That is correct. The glass type we use would be different. In other words, it might be a little bit more shaded, a little bit more grayed out. It could be a colored glass, could be more reflective glass. As it's designed today, it's a clear glass with the intent to have this image on it that's, is highlighted by the sun coming through it. And at nighttime, because the interior of the vestibule where this glass is located is internally illuminated, you'll be able to see that image also from the outside.
And you are correct, that is direct sunlight in the evening that hits that area, so.
So the alternative would be some fairly unattractive shades.
Yes.
Or very low E glass?
Unattractive shades, but there would be some
It'd
sort
be
of...
attractive shades.
Right, there would be some sort of window treatment there that would help cover that up, yes.
Or very low E glass that would allow very little light in, and that's counterproductive too.
Okay.
Or it may not even be glass, it could wind up being a solid wall, if we
Yeah.
weren't doing this.
Got it. Any other questions of the applicant? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Thank you for your consideration.
Would anybody else like to speak in support of this application? Would anybody like to speak in opposition to this application? Yes, please, come on up.
I just had a question.
Nope, please come up to the microphone. Did you get sworn in ahead of time?
No.
No.
Please raise your, this is what we call a quasi-judicial procedure, so you got to...
All right.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Would the LED TV ever be...
Could you please state your name and
I'm
address?
Daniel Duffy, and I live on Kentucky View. Would the LED TV
Please
ever be
direct your comments to the board, and we
turned
can ask...
off, is my question.
I'm sorry.
Would the LED screen ever be turned off? Or is
Okay,
that,
so-
3 a.m. is still on?
So your concern is what the hours are going to be
Yeah.
of the LED screen? Allison, does our ordinance restrict that?
We do not, no.
Okay. We will let the applicant have an opportunity to come up at the end and answer those kind of questions.
Okay.
That's a good one, thank you.
Also, how often would the image change on the LED screen?
We do have
Like
restrictions
every
on
2
that.
seconds, or every
We
second?
restrict images to be there for a minimum of 10 seconds.
Okay.
You'll notice further down the road, River Downs has a sign that is non-conforming, so they do change a little bit faster there, and Coney's
Okay.
is a little bit faster than what this would.
So it's 10 seconds is the... Any other questions?
I think that's all I had.
All right, thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Yes, please. You can state your name and address, appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Amy Duffy. I'm at 6543 Kentucky View Drive, and I am questioning the brightness. You mentioned it's within the ordinance, but how bright is that? We do sit just north of the River Downs, and we're concerned about light pollution, to be honest.
She can get sworn in.
Oh, did you get sworn in before you came in, or did you
didn't.
come in late? Oh,
Sorry.
Start again, sorry.
Telling the truth, I swear.
Nope, gotta do it.
Okay.
got to have a formal record here. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, let's start again with your name and address.
My name is Amy Duffy. I live at 6543 Kentucky View Drive, and we're concerned with the light pollution.
Okay, so your question is how much of it's going to be visible from how far away?
From our neighborhood specifically, but I don't know what's inside the ordinance. So when you say that the light is coming within the ordinance restriction, I don't know what that means.
Sure. We actually do limit all types of lights, so either from an LED screen like this or from lights within a parking lot, and it would have to be under 1/2 of a foot candle at the property line towards residential, which is supposedly the brightness of a full moon.
Okay.
Kind of give you some context there.
And I have a question for Ms. Duffy, which is relative to where your house is. I'm not familiar with your street.
Well, I don't know if you can show it on a map.
I'm sorry, just relative to where your house is.
It's up here?
Yep.
I think you're anticipating my question of what's your visibility, I guess, of the facility?
Well, at this time, we don't have much visibility. We can hear the construction work pretty regularly, but we don't see much right now, and the previous owners didn't have that much signage, so it wasn't an issue. So that's really where the concern is.
Are we seeing it on the aerial?
So on the aerial, you're up, the subdivision that's shown on the other side
Yeah,
of
we're between 275
I
and
see.
I got
River
you.
Downs.
Between
And it's a quiet
275.
neighborhood. It's been a quiet neighborhood. We've lived there for 5 years. Other neighbors have lived there much longer.
And the elevation of that, you sit way above it, right?
We do. We're on like a bluff.
Okay.
But you say you cannot see it?
Currently, no. I mean,
Can
from
you
the
see the
neg-
building
I
or
can see the
anything?
stables from where I am. Now, further down Kentucky View, I think you can see into the construction zone. I can't really speak to that, though, because I'm further east.
So you have some visibility
Yes.
lines down to it? I
Yes.
got it, okay. Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak in opposition? Yes, please. State your name and address for us, please.
Hi, my name is Hank Yiser. I'm at 6513 Kentucky View Drive. First off, I want to thank River Downs for doing such a nice job with the design. It looks really nice. Appreciate you're making a really nice building. I'm speaking now for Bruce Evans, who is the gentleman at the far west part of Kentucky View. My particular home, I don't think I can see it. He asked me to express his concern with the sign that is facing east. On the east side of the building, his view is he's got a very dramatic view of the entire project. He is out of town, he's in Michigan, and he asked me to express his concern about the brightness of the sign that's on the east side of the building. I think if you look at the plans, you'll see which
So
one we're
that's
talking
sign
about.
It's this one, isn't it?
EBS
That would be
08.
this one, which is
Oh, yeah,
not
that one
a
right there.
variable message sign.
Not a, but we will ask the applicant about how that sign's going to be lit and when it's going to be lit.
And that's not going to be a TV screen, is it? That's a
That is
sign?
that is not a, we'll ask them to confirm, but that does not appear to be a variable message sign.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in opposition to this, or if not, could the applicant please give us a chance to, get a chance to respond to some of those comments and questions that the neighbors at Kentucky View asked? I think one of the questions was the hour of operation of the variable message sign. Is
Right.
that-
The intent today is that it would be a 24/7 sign, so it would be on all the time. Obviously, there'll be maintenance periods, things like that, but by and large, it would be on all the time.
All right, and the lighting on the non-variable message board signs, were they going to be backlit, or
It
what's
was,
the?
right now, the intent is to have those lit from the bottom, and they'd be shining up on it.
But not shining out?
Correct. So it's uplighting from building-mounted signs, or building-mounted lights, I'm sorry.
And that is a static sign, so.
Right, static sign. And then, did you all, by chance, did submit to the township, or do for the township, any sort of a test of what the brightness is going to be off property and how far off?
We have not done that to date, no.
But will we be requiring that, Allison, as part of the?
Yes.
So we will require the ordinance requires that they submit
The ordinance
projection.
requires that we get the manufacturer's specs on the dimness of the screen, and then we can compare that to what we have existing for foot candles for like the parking lot signage, and see what that projection looks like.
So that it's no more than
The half a foot candle.
half a foot
yeah.
candle off the property site.
I'd like to add one more item on the LED sign. Because of the position of the building, instead of it being parallel with Kellogg, it's kind of at an angle. So that subdivision, I don't think they're going to be able to see that sign at all.
Can you pull that back up, Allison, on the drawing again?
While they're bringing that up, what's the automatic dimming feature? I read in the staff remarks that it dims automatically. How does that work?
I think that's relative to the amount of sunlight that it has, so there's a contrast in it relative to that.
Usually what happens is at nighttime, if they don't automatically dim, they can be really obvious.
Okay.
So I think of what you're saying, the amount of daylight, is this sign going to bring it down automatically?
I can't speak to it right now because we don't have it fully designed, quite frankly.
Oh, really?
We're here for the variance portion of it, for the size and the type of sign that it is. Now, with that said, we certainly will abide by the other ordinances that are in place relative to brightness and that sort of design specification criteria.
Okay.
So I will say this, we've used them in other locations, and we put in a very high-quality, high-image resolution type sign. So it's intended to represent the quality of the facility we're putting in and represent that area in a high-quality way.
I don't think it won't be very nice, but my question was more as I've seen situations where you have an LED sign, and it's fine during the day, but in the evening hours, because the brightness is not auto-adjusted correctly, it actually can become a distraction or a nuisance to either passing traffic or nearby residential. That's what I was getting at. I just presumed there was some type of automatic dimming feature on this sign, but that's my
Our
question.
zoning resolution does require that that be a model that
So
has
it's
that feature.
required, and you're saying you'll meet those.
Right, so we would do that.
Thank you.
That's fine. And if I could address one comment that the neighbor had made. Our intent, of course, is to advertise Kellogg Avenue, to Kellogg Avenue. And being up on the hillside, we certainly can do things, and we'll address it in our final design. Perhaps the angle of the board tilts down slightly. And I think we can address some concerns like that now rather than wait for it to be an issue later. So we'll work with our designers to make sure that we incorporate that.
And one last item, we take careful consideration to the entire look of the facility, to the landscaping. I think this is going to be a first-class facility, in my opinion. We've worked very hard on it. And to address your opinion about the brightness, we'll definitely pay close attention. We'll meet the specifications, but we'll look at it very closely because everything about that image is very important to us and the community around us.
Mr. Hayes?
Yes, one other question. We understand that the variable LED board will be 24/7 by the intention, and so we'll take other steps to limit the capability to see it off-site. But the uplighting on the static signs, what's the planned operation of those lights?
Once again, they'd be, more than likely, they would be on 24/7. I think we don't have any operating hours regulatory, do we? No. I mean, we're open 24 hours, so as long as we're open, they would be on.
So let me clarify that. The facility itself, because it's...
Right, the facility is not required to close at all.
It'll be open 24/7.
So if we're open 24 hours a day, then the intent would be is that they, obviously at nighttime, those static signs on the building would have the uplighting that's
Still
on
going.
it accordingly.
I mean, your 24-hour facility, if you had to shut the lights off on the sign, that would create quite an operational problem, would it not? Because that's going to communicate that you're not open.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson, any questions?
No more.
No more questions?
I had a
Oh,
quick
sorry.
question for Allison. On the Kentucky View Road, do you happen to know how far away that is? There's definitely topography change going up there, but
Off the top of my head, no, I don't.
just was curious what the distance is. It's hard to tell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the board? If not, we'll close the public hearing. We'll close the public hearing on case 19-2013 BZA. We'll have a chance to discuss this case and make a decision after we hear public testimony on the next case. And organized here, we all had a lot of papers out in front of us on that one. Case number 2013 BZA 6666 Clough Pike. Allison, are you presenting this case?
I am not actually. We have a new co-op student with us from the UC's urban planning program, and he's going to go ahead and present this one for us.
All right.
Yes, we have here the property 6666 Clough Pike. This is the Family Pet Center. Applicant is Daryl Mayerenke, Family Pet Center on behalf of the Family Pet Center LLC property owner. This property is Zone E retail, and we actually have two requests here today. The first request is a variance to allow an 8-foot high privacy fence in the rear yard where 6 feet is the maximum height allowed. And the second request is for an outside run to be within 183 feet of a residence district where 200 feet is required. Here we have the location map. We have the tract size is approximately 1.4 acres with 150 feet of frontage on Clough Pike. The topography of the site is relatively flat. There is a slope upwards in the rear of the property up towards the residential area. This is a retail store with the boarding of animals and an outside run. Here you can see an aerial of the site. If you look just west of the site, or just to the east of the site, you'll see that's where that hill is, that large area of trees. And just on top of that hill is the neighborhoods. Here's the proposed site plan. The proposed development will be for a stable style privacy fence in the rear yard, 8 feet in height, to allow for dogs to have time outdoors. The applicant is proposing to paint this with images of doors and windows to mimic an actual building. They would eventually like to make this into a fence, or this fence into a wall, creating a building for the purpose of containing boarded animals and product. Here you can see rendering of the first phase here. Second rendering, and there's one more after this. And the second request here is for the variance for the fence within 200 feet of a residence district. This will be 183 feet away. Go back to, okay, here we have a few images looking at the south side of the property. All the way to the right of the image there, that is where that proposed fence will be, all the way in the back of the property. The image in the upper right-hand corner is a zoomed-in image of that area of the land. As for request A, the staff is in the opinion that the variance is not substantial. The proposed height of the fence is 8 feet. However, the applicant is proposing to eventually convert this into a building. Structure would be permitted in this area without variances. The staff believes adjoining properties will not suffer substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The increase in height of the fence may reduce noise from the dog run area and increase security for the dogs. The staff also believes that the variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental service, and this fence will eventually become a wall for building. Therefore, the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. The future of the building would be permitted in this area and the setbacks are met. As for the second request, the outside run within 200 feet of the residence district, the variance is not substantial. The proposed setbacks for the outside run is 183 feet from the residence district where 200 is required, and the closest residence is located approximately 600 feet away at the top of the hill. The staff believes that the essential character of the neighborhood will not be substantially altered and adjoining properties will not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. The primary location of the addition is onto the east side of the business where the view of the proposed outside run will be obstructed by the existing building from the street. The additions will not significantly affect the surrounding parcels. The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of government services, and the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Although the residence district is within 200 feet of the outside run, the nearest residences are approximately 600 feet away. The hillside behind Family Pet Center limits any residential development in this area. And if you could go to the last slide for me. Here you have to the two closest residences. One is just over 600 feet, and one is just a few under 600 feet away. Of course, that is, as the crow flies, it's difficult to measure the actual hillside as it is a slope. But this is the distance from the proposed run to the closest residences.
Thank you. Any questions for Elliot?
Yeah, just a couple. Thank you for that great report, by the way, and thanks for coming to be with our board. Appreciate it. What I read in the staff remarks and heard you say is one of the reasons this fence may not be a big deal is because the owner's intention at some point is to maybe build structure back there, so it will just become a building wall, and that's allowed.
Yes, sir.
Do you know, or if that happens, I mean, one of the important things about a dog care facility is to have outdoor space. Mm-hmm. So if the new building replaces this outdoor space, what happens to the outdoor space? I mean, to be considered a building, it has to have a roof on it, does it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what's going on there?
I can take it away. So here we see Phase 1
Ms. Hodson.
does show the proposed fence area, which will eventually become roofed. But as you can see from this graphic, it is not solid all the way across the site. It is just around the perimeter. So the indoor section of that is still open.
But the staff would consider that a building?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that answers my question on that. Do you know, either one of you guys, around I guess the perimeter of the fence, it looks like there are interior frame structures there, and maybe the owner can answer that. Is it the intention basically to leave dogs out there all the time? It looks like those are some kind of separations.
I think the owner could better answer that.
Okay, we'll hold that one for the owner. And the last question I have, if you can bring back the aerial photo. Maybe the one that's more of the drawing that shows the lots and stuff.
They had the district,
That one,
yeah.
yes.
Took me, yeah.
The fairly sizable lot to the east where nothing's going on, that's zoned residential.
It's zoned residential, though it is a steep hillside, so that would really limit development in that area.
Okay, so it could be developed, but it's a tough one to develop.
Yes,
So
very
it's
challenging.
not dedicated green space for like
No.
the existing subdivision or anything? Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Hayes, any questions for staff?
And yes, from a procedural standpoint, I'm inclined to view this variance as the long-term is the fence and the outdoor run without consideration for the future building, because there's no restrictions on the future building. So I'm going to be looking at this as just the variance as it's stated now, not with the future possibilities. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Brian?
It says that there are 10 zoning certificates that have been issued previously. Are any, and none of which have been constructed. Are there any that are still within the any time limit that
We do not have timeframes on them. What typically happens is if someone comes in with an idea, a proposal, and there is a zoning certificate issued for it, the next one that comes in, if that had not been constructed, it would be voided, and the new one would be the only valid one. So that's that case here. The previous development decisions there just didn't pan out.
So there's only one?
So there's one active, yes.
What's that for?
For an enclosed building on the rear of the site, but not for this fence.
So it's for an enclosed building, but not the one we're seeing depicted here?
Right.
Okay. Huh.
I have a question for Elliot or Allison, whoever wants this one. Two of them, actually. So if instead of an 8-foot fence, they came to you with an application for a building for this entire area, they would get it as a matter of right?
Yes.
Okay. And then secondly, if the 8-foot fence was 17 foot away, and they had a dog run outside, that is also inside the, permitted by the zoning ordinance.
What do you mean 17 feet away?
Well, I meant, if you weren't expanding the area, what they do with an outdoor dog run
Yes, the existing outdoor
Dog
dog
run
run
is in
is the 200
compliance.
feet away, right?
is in compliance. So it's just, it's moving at 17 feet
Right.
closer.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, please.
Following up with Mr. Oberschmidt, the dogs are out there already. I was by there this evening, and you can hear the dogs. Does the township receive any complaints about this?
Planning and zoning does not. We do have a barking dog ordinance, but it is enforced through our sheriff's department.
Are you aware of any complaints
I
about
know
this
Dave
facility?
Boyman's had some questions on the applicability of the barking dog ordinance and if it's just residential or if it's both residential and commercial and things like that.
Oh, okay. Maybe the owner can answer. And so Mr. Johnson was asking about the permits that are out already on this, and there's one for an enclosed building for the
There's
same,
been
for the
several-
same area we're talking about, but it's not what we're showing here. So
No, it was
what
a
if that's
separate-
built?
If there's a separate accessory structure built in the back for like the storage of extra.
It's an accessory
Yeah,
permit?
right.
Okay, gotcha.
And it included some reconfiguration of the parking lot and things like that.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Would the applicant or the applicant's representative like to come forward and give us a little more background on what's going on and perhaps answer some questions for us?
Is he sworn in?
Good evening, I'm Darrell Myeranke, and I'm the owner of Anderson Township Family Pet Center.
I'm sorry, were you here at the beginning to be sworn in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Thank you. I guess probably the place to start is to maybe answer some of your questions to begin with. I don't know if you could go to Phase 3 of that, Allison. That might be, I looked up as you were talking, it kind of scared me. Looking at that big white area thinking, oh, is there going to be dogs all the way back there? And that's not the case. That area is, dogs would not be permitted there. Basically, our yard, that green outline around the yard is a covered outdoor exercise area. It would not be enclosed where dogs would be spending evenings and overnights there. That's just a sheltered area for the dogs to go out into during the day. And we do have a plan submitted. We submitted probably dozens of plans, trying to get some improvements done to our lot, and it has a variety of restrictions upon it that make it difficult to build there. One of the issues is that it is in the floodplain. The area, if you could maybe go back one, Allison, to the gray, or maybe one more. Not that one either. There you go, that's a good one. But the gray area that's shown there is to the back of that, which would be the east. There's a slight raise in the elevation of the ground, but puts us out of the floodplain. Any building that we would propose would be back in there. The gray area is the 17 feet that is basically worthless to us. If we were to have a building there, there would be a gap between that. And as I said, we've been through a variety of submittals over the last several years, and none of them have been acted upon, largely because of the costs involved and the economic conditions that we're in at this time as far as the economy goes. Our business is doing very well, and we believe that it's important to put up an 8-foot fence. At one time, we had a little buffer between us and the neighborhood behind us, which was on the property that was developed by the American Legion. There was a natural growth of underbrush and trees that cut down on that. And when the American Legion developed their property, they cleared that area, and that certainly didn't help any conditions. So I'm sure that there's more noise today than there was a year ago. So I would like to replace our fence to make it safer for the animals, to keep them contained, and also to cut down on the amount of noise that is transmitted up the hill. If we're able to enlarge our yard that additional 17 feet, which is approximately half the size of this room, our total area of space is only the size of this room in depth, 35 feet. So if we had the 17 feet additional, we can break our yards up into smaller play areas. A lot of our population is aging, and it's better for them if we got some old guys, they don't want to play with the young dogs, and it works out quite well when we keep them separated. Other than that, I suppose I should just answer any questions that you may have and try to.
Mr. Elf, any questions?
Well, those were really helpful answers for me. I do have just a quick question on the capacity of your facility. How many dogs do you have, I guess, enrolled there?
Our average daycare is around 30. I kind of started thinking about this. If I come here and tell you that I want to expand my business, that's not really true. I'm kind of satisfied where my business is right now. This is more of a thing about making it the best it can be, as opposed to enlarging. We don't have any intent to have more animals. It's just to make it better.
What would be your maximum capacity? Would you? I see what you're saying. This is from your perspective, it's a quality for the care. But is there room for growth there? It's a pretty big building, it looks like.
Well, our daycare and our kennel business really hasn't grown over the last 5 or 6 years, probably. There is room for growth. I mean, if money were no object and I was a younger person, I would probably be here before you to ask for more kennel space and more everything. But it's just since we've opened, we were the third daycare to go into operation in Cincinnati, and in the last 5 years, there's now I think 7 or 8 daycare operations within a 5-mile radius. So certainly we could have grown our business. We can grow our business if we want to. I'm not that concerned about that. There is more room. We could go back another 83 feet from the shaded area to construct a building, but then we run into issues such as impervious surface. The floodplain would be out of there, but a variety of lighting, retention, water retention, variety of issues. It's a site that's fraught with lots of building problems if you were to construct something new. So
I understand. And just one other quick question. Ask Ms. Hodson. Have you received complaints about noise from the facility, and if so,
yes,
how
sir.
many?
Yes, sir. Another weird part about that particular property is there's a ravine that goes down. There's several ravines that come down, and you go straight behind us, and you really don't have an issue. But you do have sound that kind of bounces up and goes up that ravine, and I've worked with Mrs. Seaman. She's made her displeasure with the noise at times apparent to us. We've worked together. She has my phone number. She's called. I think I've been responsive every time she's called about, hey, pull the dogs in. She's an artist, and she works late into the night sometimes, so if she is having a client come over or something, she wants quiet, we can work with that. And then just Saturday, I learned of a concern by Mr. Franco, who's our neighbor, and I think the house probably closest to it on the left, but we'd never spoken before in regards to that. But those are the only two complaints we've ever had.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hayes?
A quick question about the outbuildings that are there at the present time. They're not in the same places as this drawing shows, but there are a couple of buildings that are
Those
existing.
the white temporary buildings. We need storage bad, and if we were to do any construction, it would be a building behind that gray area for storage.
Further back. And I think those outbuildings that are there for small storage of equipment are inside the gray area, I think. Is that correct?
No, actually, the gray area is to the west of that. Those white storage buildings that I guess you stopped by and saw, the new fence would not go any further back than the beginning of those white buildings.
And there's a fence there now.
Yeah. If you're familiar with where the white buildings are and the fence that's there, the
Yes.
fence that's there is in compliance, and the difference is the area that's in question, where I'd like to extend it.
Okay.
And you know how it jumps up there. That little 2-foot puts it in a buildable area. So without that, it's kind of wasted space.
Okay. Yeah, there's also a small pool or something in there, too.
That's
in
good.
in that general area.
That'll go.
Does not look like it's used, though, is it? No.
Mr. Johnson?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you very much for now.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak in support of this application? Would anybody like to speak in opposition to this application? Yes, please, come to the microphone, please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Bob Franco, and I live at 2432 Royal View Court. So I do believe that we are the closest property, or at least one of the two closest properties.
Excuse me, Allison, or Ellie, could you bring up the picture that shows the distances?
Right, so if you look at the top red line up to our property, the L-shaped property, that's us up there.
Thank you.
And while we have that map up there, as Darrell was saying, the topography of the area is really important. The sound really comes up that hill. It's pretty amazing, really, and it surprises people. We get car noises going by on Clough Pike, even though the distance is substantial. Because of the hill, the noise comes straight up. There's no barrier to the noise coming up the hill. And there is currently a problem, and I think everyone recognizes that there's currently a problem even from what we've just heard, with noise from the animals at the pet center. So, barking, howling, mostly early in the morning, I guess when they let the animals out. It's bad enough at times to wake us up, even with the windows closed in the house. And it's not just a few barks and then it's gone. We're talking about relatively long periods of time, maybe 30 minutes at a stretch, where the noise continues. A lot depends, I'm sure, on how many and maybe even which dog happens to be there that day. I think it does at least is inconsistent with the resolution that the township has about dog noise, as I understand it. But notwithstanding that, we're here to try to work to improve the situation with Darrell. And so we're in favor of anything that he does that makes the situation better. For example, a higher, more substantial fence at the current fence line, we would support that. I don't know if it'll make much difference, but it's certainly not going to hurt, and it might make it better. The problem is moving it back further into the property, that's 17 feet. So I think that that's going to have to make it worse to some degree. I can't say how much worse, but it's going to make it worse for a number of reasons. First of all, it increases the area available for the outside area for dogs, and at least there's a potential that there'll be more dogs there. So more dogs is going to equal more noise. The second thing is that it moves it closer to our property. So whatever the effect of that, it's not a good effect, it's a bad effect. It's going to be, again, noisier than it has been, everything else being equal. And there's a third factor that maybe is not so apparent, and that is that you change the angle. So it's easier for the noise to go over the fence and up the hill in a straight line to our properties rather than being intercepted by the fence. So the further back you go, everything else being equal, I think there'll be more noise. So I think that's about all I have to say. You know, we're certainly in favor of the bigger, more substantial fence, but we would object to bringing the noise any closer to our properties. Thank you.
Thank you. 1 second, any questions?
How often do you hear dogs up at your house?
Quite often. I'm not going to say every day, but certainly it's not just an occasional thing. I would say it's variable, but I would say there certainly have been periods, and I think what Darrell said about it being worse more recently is true. And there are periods where we hear them most days.
And I'm asking this question, I think it's really wonderful that you have your dialogue with him. And so I'm just asking this question just for my own curiosity. Have you ever made a complaint under the township's dog barking ordinance?
We have not, and we've been reluctant to do that.
I totally understand. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hayes, any questions? No. Mr. Johnson?
No questions.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in opposition? Yes, please. State your name and address.
I'm Diane Seaman. I live at 2436 Royal View, so it's the next house over. Like Darrell said, we have talked quite a bit. I'm a customer of his, but I was the first one to complain because it's amazing how the noise travels up, and it's like a theater in the round. We have perfect seats, but to be woken up by dogs at 6:30, through the years of conversation, he's then pushed back the time that he lets the dogs out. I said he's been very agreeable to that, but it's still the fact that you get maybe 30 dogs at one time, sometimes three times a day, out barking. We have a dog. I don't like it to bark, but it's intensified. And we love the idea that he can raise a fence to see if it is going to alter the noise. But my concern is what happens if that doesn't work? Then they're closer to us and the pitch of the roof doesn't work to deter the noise. Then what? That's a big concern. We have the next two neighbors that are over, two down from us, two sets of neighbors. They couldn't be here tonight. They hear it also. I said, Darrell's been good to work with, but the fact is that they do have dogs that do have to go out during the day. I understand that, but it doesn't make it any easier to listen to repeatedly, day after day. With the windows open, it just gets unbearable. You have to close the windows. And again, I applaud any effort to make that better, but the fact is they're going to be there. That's his business. So if the pitch of the roof doesn't work, then what? And I have made a complaint before we started our conversation and changing the hours. I did call the sheriff's office one time, and I don't want to be a, thorn in Daryl's side, but it's just, if you had a neighbor right next door who did that again and again and again and again, what recourse is there? And again, I don't want to have any recourse to Daryl, but it's, a lot of noise, and that's a problem. So no, we don't want it any closer. We would like anything to do to change the noise, though.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in opposition? Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments, please?
Briefly, if I could.
Wait till you get up to the mic so we can get you on the tape.
There are issues, and we have worked well together, I think, in trying to resolve them. Mr. Franco had a good point in our conversation the other day. You wonder, is there going to be, how much more noise is there going to be in the, from the dogs barking with a 6-foot fence as opposed to 8-foot fence, as opposed to being 17 feet further back? I'm not a pro at this, but I do have a young man who's an engineering student that is working part-time at the store. And I asked him, I said, could you draw me a picture? And I apologize in advance because this is not that official look of a looking picture, but it kind of does get the point across. Would it be possible to share this with you?
Sure.
Okay.
You get to keep it, though, because if it
I'm
has to
sorry?
become part of our record.
We have to
so
keep it.
You get your copy back.
But basically, I don't know how you do this. But what we did was we took a picture of a dog 30 inches high and put up a 6-foot fence and put out an imaginary spray of noise.
If you can mind,
Sure.
so we can keep you on the tape here.
All right. So it puts out an imaginary spray of noise, okay? And at 6 foot, the top of the fence picks up the top of the line. And at 17 feet further back, the top of the fence picks up the top of the line. So I do believe that the 8-foot fence would be very effective at cutting the noise down, but I also agree that it would be more important to have that cover on it. And with that cover projecting out 17 feet towards the building, I'm sure that it will shoot the noise towards the road. And I'm not opposed to making that a part of the decision or whatever. If you want to say, you approve this with under the condition that roof, I don't even know if you can do it, but if you want to approve it with the condition that roof is part of the structure, I'm good with that. And I think that would be probably the most effective way to cut the noise down.
Go ahead.
I want to make sure that I understand your proposal there, because it does significantly change your application. In place of the 8-foot fence around the perimeter, I think you're proposing to go to stage 3, ignoring the store facade, and putting a cover around the perimeter outside.
Yeah, this was submitted a couple of weeks ago. In speaking with Mr. Franco, I had not heard that point before about the dogs, projecting over the fence.
Mm-hmm.
It makes good sense to go ahead and go put that roof on now.
And then a different question to Allison.
I'm going to pause you. We've got to change tapes.
Change tapes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, you're on a roll.
Gives you a chance to polish up your question.
I had it. I really had it.
Those aren't tapes, those are discs.
It is. We call them tape.
Back in the 70s, huh?
old names for the newer
No,
technology.
I don't have an 8-track over here.
They got an 8-track, reel to reel.
Okay.
We go, back on,
Now
okay.
you can talk.
Oh, you're set already? My question is that if we change the application for this variance to the stage 3, the covered place, staff would consider that a building and no longer need a variance, if I understood what our earlier conversations were.
We would still require the variance for the additional 17 feet closer.
Because it's not totally enclosed.
Right. Well, yes, because it would not be the same as the dogs being within
The dogs wouldn't be
the
within an
facility.
enclosed structure.
Right. Adding the roof, it would still be considered the animals outdoors 17 feet closer to the residential area.
Okay, I'm not following that then, because that was my earlier question, that
Yeah.
Right, so-
that would be considered a building. That's what I thought the staff report said, that with that roof on it, it would be considered a building and
You can go
not
back
an
with it.
open dog area.
It would not be considered the same as, so having a fully enclosed structure such as the storefront area there versus this partially open.
Right. If it's partially open, just like it's shown there, does that require a variance or not? I thought that the
That would,
remarks
yes.
were it would not.
Because of the use,
Yes.
the structure
Just
would,
to
but
have
the
a
use of
structure
it-
there would not need a variance, but the use of that would, yes.
So if it's fully enclosed, it can be within 200.
Okay, so
Right,
it has to be fully
100 feet at that
enclosed, then it
point.
doesn't matter if it's got that roof or not.
Thank you for answering my question.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think we maybe need to be a little bit careful about changing this on the fly
Yeah.
like this, because although the suggestion is appreciated, I'm not sure what kind of permitting issues that might create for the applicant, as opposed to, today it's a fence, you put a roof on it, supports, I'm not sure.
And are you talking about building it all the way around or just on the back 17 feet?
I think that it would be most beneficial on the northern side, but I want to put the roof all the way around.
Anybody, Brian, did you have any questions or comments? I think we need to maybe talk amongst us. I mean, is this something where we hold this one open and ask for a little detail on the,
That was exactly my thought, is table this and get some more specific.
I think what we'll do is we'll,
Before we table it, though,
I don't
If
want
we're-
to table it, but hold it open, yeah.
if we hold it open, there's something I would like to maybe have investigated too, which is this drawing, which we received is really cute, and that there's a dog, and it looks like there's a giant megaphone coming from the dog, and it's running into the fence, okay? And so the implication is if the fence is taller, it stops it. However, we all know that sound doesn't go in a straight line, it goes in waves. And you have sound waves, and if it's a deep tone, it has a bigger wave, and if it's a barking tone, it might have a different wave. Would it be possible, and this isn't the first case we've heard this concept suggested, that a higher fence baffles the sound better. And I'm not sure that's valid. It might be, but I'm not sure. I don't think it could hurt, but I'm not sure it makes any difference. Is there some way, if we held this open, we could get a little more science to that and say, yeah, that makes a difference, or it doesn't? Maybe you could look into
You
it?
can request anything from
Okay.
the applicant to submit, or,
A build on that one, I'd like to see, that shows a straight angle at a certain distance. But we know that the adjoining properties, or the adjacent properties, the ones that have the noise problem, are at an angle,
They're up here.
I'd like to find out what that angle is compared to this drawing.
I was interpreting that drawing as, they were saying that as the noise goes to 6 feet, it's the same as it going to 8 feet,
17 feet away.
deep. Yeah, so it's, but
As opposed to, as the neighbors commented, it'd be one thing if it was an 8-foot fence at the current location
Right.
versus 17 feet further
I
back.
see.
So there would be just like a no change.
Right, he's right. Yeah,
I
that
think
is what
that's-
it shows, you're right.
I'd
But
think,
that's assuming
Yeah.
that they're at a level,
I don't know if that's correct.
and it's,
You want it to
yeah.
table or just hold it open for further information?
yeah, can
Okay.
we, our options are to hold this open for further information, right?
Yeah, you would table it, but you would not close the
We
public
would
hearing.
not close the
Okay.
public hearing. So we table it for a month and then ask you to provide to staff, for the public record, which you all would have a chance to look at, a little more detail on the design of the roof, so to speak, that you propose as part of the 8-foot-high fence, and then any opportunities to get us a little more sound information would be appreciated. And we'll leave it, the public hearing open, so that those interested can come and comment on that, and can also, they'll have a little opportunity to consider the funny sound factors and the angles that were articulated. And it will probably also give you, kind of off the record, another month to continue to communicate with the affected property owners as you develop the plans a little bit more, to see if this is something that can be a win-win situation. This is not a case, I mean, the existing dog run and the existing noise is in compliance, right?
Right.
So that one's between other people than us. But we certainly would look forward next month to seeing a little more detail, and then on how the overhang might work. Anything you can provide any more on the sound would be appreciated. Anybody else on the board want to ask for any further
Well,
information?
I'd like the sound, but not necessarily from Mr. Meyerinke, but from staff, too, so we have some kind of objective, not that you're not objective, sir, that's the wrong way to say it, but
okay.
we'd like to hear your information, of course, but I'd be curious to see if that is similar to what Ms. Hodson might come up with. And I believe also Mr. Hayes was interested in the angle of the homes relative to the ground location here, and if that might have some interplay into, we heard the comments that it seems to almost be magnified, or there's a pathway. Does this angle have some, it's fairly, actually kind of a little bit complicated, I think, some of this stuff, but it'd be interesting and very helpful to hear. And is this sign, or this drawing that indicates that a higher fence a little bit back is going to basically provide the same type of buffering as a 6-foot? Now, is there any accuracy to
And
that?
it may be that a slightly different angling would diminish sound. I don't,
especially with the covers.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Could I go on record here real quick and just be upfront with everyone, is that, we're losing our season, and while I don't want you to rush into making any type of decision, I want to try to move forward with this project so we can get some work done before the weather turns bad. And I don't know what kind of work I can do without your approval. However, I want to try, if there are things that I can do to move through the construction process through as quickly as possible and still be able to do something yet this year, I would like to try to do that. So, I guess what I'm saying is if I go get some other plans or do some other things, I don't mean to, I'm not doing that assuming that you're going to go along with what I'm proposing. I'm just trying to move things forward.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what to say about that. I mean, I think you can get the sense from this board, without speaking for everybody else, that we're probably not comfortable yet with the,
Sure.
with at least a portion of the variance request. It's two parts of it. And I just don't know how far you can go.
Yeah, probably not very far at all.
Not very far.
But, you know,
And our
if there's
next
opportunity
meeting
to
is
do it, I like to do
November
it without
6th or
taking anybody
7th or
off.
something like that.
So, okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
I'm
Thank you
sorry,
all
but-
very much.
Is the board comfortable recognizing the other folks to hear what they have to say, just in case there's additional information needed?
Since we're going to table it, it might be helpful to
Yeah,
hear if they
if
have
there's
some
anything else.
additional.
Would one of you like to come up? Please, come on.
First of all, I really appreciate Darrell's efforts to, you know, try to make changes even on the fly to try to accommodate it. There is a current problem. I think that, I think that it's important to recognize, and as we all have said, that it's not really just a matter of not creating a problem. There's already a problem. So, you know, anything that is done should be done to try to alleviate that problem, not something that predictably could make it even a little bit worse. The second thing that I'd like to say is that as much respect as I have for engineering students, and I was one myself at one time, this is really a very specialized area of sound engineering. And we're all flying blind here, I think, including myself. And what we would like to see, and I think this is true for the entire neighborhood, is really some professional help here. An evaluation of the property by a sound engineering firm with recommendations in writing that we all could look at, and a plan to move forward without just guessing what's going to help and what's not going to help. And I think, you know, of course there are expenses involved in doing that, but I think that's the only way we're going to really know whether a particular plan is going to be helpful.
So I think that's where Mr. Eliff was heading, although we have to duck around the who can afford to have that done issue a little bit, but thank you.
Thank you.
Ready for a motion?
Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we table this case, but leave the public participation open to gather additional information as may be warranted, and in particular, we would be wanting to see with some more certainty what it is that's being asked to be approved. A fence with the covers on it, we would like some more detail on that. And secondly, we would like additional information on the noise impact or baffling impact that a taller fence might have, an 8-foot fence that's being proposed, and also what, if any, impact a roofing structure might have on baffling it, and if possible, some type of comparison of here's the barrier today, here it is moved 17 feet back, is there going to be a noticeable change or not? And then lastly, some information on what is the angle of the elevation relative to where the subject property is versus where the neighbors' houses are. They're up higher, and does that have any impact? So, and that's maybe kind of a tall order, so we ask Ms. Hodson to do the best she can with that. She's our expert here for us. The applicant may want to bring additional information as he is able or capable as well, but that kind of information would be very helpful. So with those clarifications, I'd move that we table the case but leave the public input open.
Motion, please.
I'll second that motion, and I would ask for consideration of the modification of it, that it is okay to have the affected neighbors, if they want to contribute to the cost of the investigation as well as the owner.
Mr. Elf, you okay with that modification?
Well, I'm not quite sure what you're saying. I'm not anticipating necessarily the township incurring a cost. That's a wonderful suggestion, but I don't think that's within necessarily our scope of the board to direct that they obtain some expert assistance. We're going to rely on Ms. Hodson, and if others want to provide reports to her to the extent she has capacity and ability, that's going to be kind of a staff call, I think. But I think it'd be helpful, of course. I think we're going to need to rely on staff within her capabilities and authority, do the best she can.
Well, without stating otherwise, the implication is the cost is on the township, and I wanted to broaden that was the intention of the modification.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All, can we call the roll on this one?
Brian Hill.
Aye.
Larry Hayes.
Aye.
Brian Sanders.
Nope.
Not here.
Johnson.
Not here.
Johnson, sorry.
Aye.
Rick Overton.
Aye. For the record, we at times have 3 Brians up here on the podium. Okay. With that, we will adjourn the public hearing on this case and take it up again next month. Next up would be the deliberation of the 2 remaining cases. Case 18-2013 BZA, the previously approved garage growing by 2 feet and 3 feet. Any discussion of this case?
Mr. Chairman, I am in favor of granting this variance, as I see no substantial difference from the action that we took on August the 1st on the same property. But I would like to keep the exact same conditions that we had at that time, and the better detail than we had when we did approve this is helpful to see that they are within the setback limitations of our zoning resolution.
Other thoughts on this?
I agree.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I agree. I was just, are we allowed to amend the prior one with just the new language up to the new?
Yeah. And that's what,
The new.
how I prepare resolutions for you guys, and then we look at them on the
Would be
screen right now.
amending the action we took in
You
August?
cannot amend that one, as this is a totally separate case, but we can use that same language
All
from
right,
the
but
prior
we can say
resolution.
that this supersedes that case? Okay. And like Mr. Hayes observed, one of the things that I think I griped about in August was the lack of a detailed plan that gave us a real sense of exactly where this was versus property lines and side yards, and so I'm far more comfortable with it now. With that, I guess we'll entertain a motion for a straw vote on this pending typing of the final one.
This is perhaps as easy as motions get.
That's why you're jumping on it, isn't
I'm
it?
jumping on this one. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the resolution that we already approved on the 1st of August on this property, but rename it as case number 18-2013 BZA with the exact same restrictions and no modifications beyond that resolution. Except for including the revised plans dated September 12th, 2013.
Have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Betty, could you call the roll, please?
Brian Hill.
Aye.
Fred Hayes.
Aye.
Brian Johnson.
Aye.
Rick Overton.
Aye. Okay, we'll get that one typed up and formalize it shortly. Discussion on case 19-2013 BZA, signage package at the River Downs facility. Discussion?
Yeah, I should have, as I think about it before I give any opinions or anything else, I should have stated to all of my fellow board members that I serve on the Anderson Township Economic Development Committee with Mr. Kaufman, who's the vice president of this organization. He gave very little testimony, and I don't think that it is going to impact my thinking on this case at all, but I should at least divulge it to.
So noted.
I'll jump in. I don't have a lot of comment on this. I think the pictures really tell the story for me, and that is, if you look at those colored elevation drawings, the signage is in scale for the size of this building, and I think the reason we're here for a variance, and if we remember the plans of the township, this is a special area of the township. It's an entertainment district, and the zoning sometimes needs to catch up with what the plans are for these places, but when you have these kinds of very unique facilities, their needs are completely different. And so with regard to the scale of the signs, it looks very appropriate to me and deserving of variances that really hadn't anticipated this kind of situation. And with regard to the lighted signs are becoming more and more common. Again, this is a unusual and a unique facility, and there's an expectation, I believe, that this kind of signage be there. I did appreciate the remarks that we had from several of the residents, but I was satisfied with the responses, and also our code anticipates brightness limitations. There's indication to even know at this point if this is even visible. It didn't sound like it was. It sounded like the side sign might be visible, and that's just going to be uplit. So I think the variances are well-founded. I'm not sure. I agree with, I guess, being conservative and saying those window treatments are signage, because if we don't, then there might be a situation we don't anticipate where it's less like artwork and more like a sign. But I think those are appropriate, and I would be in favor of this, all of the variances.
I think although the signs are larger than what we allow, I don't think they look disproportionate to the building, and I think that they're well incorporated with the rest of the building. I think the window graphics add to the character, you know, the horse racing, and you know, I think they serve a purpose, that they're blocking light. I guess I wouldn't mind seeing something else if they're thinking about tilting the signs out to affect the brightness, or the candle, you know, if they're going to dim them later. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing some extra information for that.
And I'd like to build on that one, Mr. Johnson. I think that's right on. We probably should ask for restrictions that limit the light going up. The township zoning resolution has some good restrictions on the limits of the light at the edge of the property. The concern of the affected folks around this is, again, on a strange thing that is up higher. And I was worried about the uplighting aggravating that, especially all night long. That the light pollution above the facility is probably going to pass our normal regulations at the perimeter of the property. But we probably ought to put some restrictions on the light that is going straight up that will increase the light pollution above it. And that's what's probably going to be most troublesome to folks. The rest of the signage, I thought, was actually conservative for a gaming facility. They compared themselves to the Las Vegas Strip, but that is a stretch. And that's the other end of the ridiculous spectrum. This is far more conservative and far more tasteful than even the Horseshoe facility downtown.
Couple thoughts. I thought it was very important that the variable message board is on the part of the facility that's angled away from the residents on the hill to the east. So I think that's very critical. I also think it's critical that the applicant indicated, maybe our resolution should reflect some way, that the, what do they call it? The window graphics will not be advertising. I think it's one thing to have the name of the facility or something like that, but will not be advertising. I guess I have a question for Allison on our, the concerns raised by the residents, hours of operation, 24/7 permitted by the code, and it's the hours of the facility. Limitations on changing of the sign, limited by the code, 10 seconds. Dimming, limited by the code, so we don't have to deal with it. But the question that Mr. Hayes raised about brightness up, not dealt with on our code. We are only looking at property limits.
We're looking at what it is at the edge of the property. Yeah, there's no language about kind of light pollution directly above a building.
So we have no limits, but how do we even test that or deal with that?
Well, we have measuring devices quantitatively at the perimeter. We could add a restriction that we use those same restrictions at 100 feet above the facility and put the light meters up there rather than at the perimeter.
Is that doable, Allison?
I think we're a little bit on, I'm not sure we're on stable ground with that kind of idea. I hear what you're saying. I'm familiar with the idea of light pollution. In other words, it doesn't, our meter doesn't read at the property line, but when you're off, there's this glow out there, and how do you control that? And I'm quite uncomfortable trying to fashion that relative to this particular case. If we get policy direction through our zoning resolution or something where they say, light pollution is a concern here in Anderson Township, here's how it's been studied, here's ways to control it. For example, maybe you put shading over it or something like that. That's one thing. But I'm not comfortable trying to fashion it for this one because I don't think we can. I'm not sure about. I can't fathom how that will work, trying to get readings. We don't even know what the angle of the uplights are. They're uplit, but what's the angle of the uplighting, for example? Is it right at the building? Is it even spilling over? We don't have that information. So I'm not, I hear what the board is saying, but I'm just wondering, I wouldn't know how to capture that, except to raise a concern and note that concern in our approval somehow and encourage the applicant, as they said they would, to work cooperatively with our staff to try and limit that. But to put a condition on? A condition on it, I'm not sure I would know how to do that.
Mr. Johnson, your thoughts on that?
I guess I would maybe just like to see what they would propose to do, as opposed to granting it now and putting a condition on. I don't know.
Well, normally we set conditions that staff evaluates later so that we can act on it and the action is complete. Is that right?
Right.
That's what our past practice has been.
Right. For us to, I think, if what I hear you saying, Brian, we would have to request, I guess, some additional information to make the decision as opposed to making the decision now. I don't know how far we could go in a decision now that says, and the final drawings will minimize the uplighting or the staff, or to staff satisfaction that the uplighting has been, minimized. I don't know if we can go that far or not. I think that's what Mr. Eliff is saying. He's not quite comfortable with that kind of a generalization. Is that?
Yes, that is, well, that I don't think a lot of times I am comfortable leaving it up to staff on that kind of thing, like density of shrubbery or stuff like that, but on this one, it's a little bit tough. I'm not sure that would be something I'd want to put on staff's shoulders, say, it's up to you to say, this is too much I think that puts, no, I'm not comfortable delegating that. I'm comfortable delegating a expectation that the staff and the developer work as they represented they would to minimize disruption, knowing they still have to meet certain levels to have a level of success for their business also.
Would others on the board be comfortable if the resolution contained a condition that says that the applicant and staff, the staff rather, in reviewing the final drawings for the sign, will work with the applicant to reduce or to minimize the uplighting and to look at the angle of the sign?
I'd be comfortable with that if staff is comfortable. Actually, that's a tough one. It's a tough one for
That certainly
staff.
is what the applicant indicated
Said.
they were
Yeah.
willing to do.
And I'm not sure I'd say minimize uplighting, but minimize disruption from uplighting, because
Yeah.
there may not be, we don't even know that there will be any disruption from it. That's certainly something they could work together on. But who makes that decision? The sign company will say, this is the minimum level of lighting we want with the disruption minimized. Is that going to be good enough? Or does it have to then meet to staff's approval as well?
And so then if the staff and the applicant don't agree, then they don't meet the condition, right?
Yeah, now I guess if staff says, really, there are little things you can do to minimize this or to stop the disruption, and you're not doing it, you're pointing a searchlight straight up in the air, then they would not have met the condition.
Correct.
I think that might be a good way to go, and if the applicant cannot be satisfied in meeting that, then they can come back to us and try to get further approvals from this board or something with more detail on those issues.
You're comfortable with that? Any further discussion on this application? All looks very nice, very high quality. Be a great asset to the township, and certainly consistent with the comprehensive plans and other plans of the township to have a facility of this scope, which needs which needs this kind of signage, seems appropriate.
And quality, even in the signage, yes.
So we'll entertain a motion.
I think since Mr. Hayes had such an easy motion last time, perhaps he should take a crack at this. That's just a suggestion.
You can split it into 3, you can do it all in one, whatever's easiest for you.
Once again, this being a straw vote pending typing of the formal resolution.
You can also always say, as written in staff report.
Well, what about that? Can we just, are we comfortable incorporating some of the findings in the staff report into the motion?
I think so, because it's a straw motion, it'll get typed up and we can act on it formally, so. I don't have a problem with entertaining a motion that does a lot of incorporation and by reference. This is why I'm glad I'm the
That's
chair.
my, okay, unless anybody else wants to, I'll
You can always just say
take a crack at it.
one by
so.
one, or
With regard to case number 19-2013 BZA 6301 Kellogg Road, the board finds that there were 3 variances requested specifically to allow wall signs totaling 4,935 square feet, where 500 square feet is the maximum permitted under section 320.102.100, to allow a variable message sign 1,890 square feet, where 250 square feet is the maximum permitted under section 320.104.108, and to allow window signage covering more than 50% of the window. The board finds that the requested variances are justified and well taken, and would hereby approve the variances, and further making findings and incorporating findings with regard to the wall signage and the window graphics and the variable message sign, that we find that the findings and reasoning contained in the staff report are incorporated into this motion. Is there any other condition?
Conditions, you want to incorporate the conditions about the cooperation on the lighting?
Yes. And additionally, these following conditions, that the applicant, as it represented in the hearing this evening, will work cooperatively with staff to find mutually acceptable standards for the directional lighting, for the uplighting, as well as adjustments as may be needed for the variable message board in order to limit to the maximum extent feasible the disruption that may be and light pollution that may be created from these signs. Also, we would incorporate the drawings submitted in this case to the board as part of the approvals, and that the signage shall conform to those drawings, stamped, received September 13th, 2013. And before I add this usual condition, is the timing good on this, that it should start within 1 year and be finished within 2? I'm asking that question. Maybe should...
Their plans are to open within 2, so...
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay. And that the signage approved herein shall be, work shall be started no less than 1 year from the date of this approval and completed within 2 years, and that the window graphics shall conform in spirit to the graphics displayed here, and that they, although considered signage, they are really meant as artwork that reflects the history of the facility.
And not advertising.
And does not constitute advertising. Anything else?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion about that? Brian? All right with that?
Nicely done.
Thank you.
All right. Betty, could you call the roll, please?
Brian Miller,
Aye.
Fred Hayes,
Aye.
Brian Johnson,
Aye.
Rick Overton.
Aye. Okay, I think we'll take a brief recess while staff gets us 2 resolutions to look at, one of which will be easier than the other. Come back from recess here and consider case 18-2013 BZA 7655 Coldstream Drive. We have up on the screen the resolution.
what did you change in the copy?
So this is all identical from last time.
Good.
Except for the dates, the size is the new size. All of this is the same. What I did alter is that before we wanted a site plan showing the setbacks and everything, which we have a much better drawing this time around, so I removed that and just kept that you wanted a site plan showing the evergreen trees.
Okay.
And then I changed the date of the drawings, obviously. But other than that, it is identical to the previous resolution.
Do we have to say anything about preempting the previous, or superseding the
No.
previous resolution? We do not have to do that. Okay.
This was a good way to do it because I forgot some of the restrictions that we had in there, and that's very good to keep in there.
In paragraph 2 up there, the site plan, there's like an extra word somewhere.
Can you scroll down just a little bit further? What else is there, Allison?
No, just.
Oh, the
standard.
boilerplate. Boilerplate, okay. You want this one?
Looks good. Yes. Don't forget Mr. Johnson.
I'll give you this one.
Hey, give him do it.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
The other Brian.
Make a motion that we record and journalize the decision in case number, BZA case number 18-2013.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Betty, could you call the roll, please?
Brian Miller,
Aye.
Fred Hayes,
Aye.
Brian Johnson,
Aye.
Rick Oberschmidt.
Aye. All right, case 19, 2013 BZA. We love the address of the owner on this one.
Yes. It's funny, actually, Pinnacle does not own any casinos in Las Vegas, but they are headquartered there.
Huh. That is interesting.
And they apparently don't like the lighting in the...
I guess not.
I missed that first line, I'm sorry. There you go, thank you.
And there should hopefully be no issues in the justifications forms, because I copied and pasted from the staff report.
Well, we might modify it just a touch, just for the heck of it.
Is PNK the legal?
P&K is their legal name, yes.
Okay.
It's, I believe, the stock abbreviation for Pinnacle Entertainment, but that's what they're listed as in the auditor.
I was trying to tie it back to something and I couldn't. Okay.
Move that up just a little bit for us.
That's too far. I was thinking about adding a sentence at the end of 1 there. The rest of it I think is good, but I was thinking about adding the thought that the wall signage is well within normal proportions of the large building size. And that, we said that over and over again.
Yeah.
That's the main justification
That's a
for
good
doing
point.
it.
And so after smaller structures, you'd add, and is proportionate to this,
Large building size.
to the large building.
Proportional or proportionate?
Proportionate?
Yeah.
Proportion-
ATE.
ATE. Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thank you, very good improvement. give us a little more of that next one.
Yeah, the proportionality issue is addressed nicely already here. So it's in good shape.
In paragraph 1, it says, "Properties to the east and west will not be able to view the wall sign from their respective properties." We're talking about the variable message sign.
Yes.
So you want to say, view the variable message sign.
Well, it's the heading right above it is the variable message sign.
All right, but in the text, I just didn't want to keep them. And then maybe we say, maybe at the beginning of that, we say due to the angle of the sign installation, or at the end of it, either way.
It's going to be in the restrictions, I think, isn't it?
No, that's the fact that it faces more to the west as opposed to the residential properties to the east, as opposed to the up and down lighting thing. And we'll put that, that's, you know the concept of it. And maybe I'll say, do the angle of the sign residential properties to the east.
Oh, in this, I mean, I was referring to even commercial stuff.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right, all right,
Rounding
all
it.
right, that's fine. And then the frequency of message changes and brightness of the screen. It is automatic dimming.
Yes.
Can we use, that seemed to be important to some of us.
Yes.
It's good.
Don't lose the chance. Hit save.
Started doing something weird.
Yeah, hit save again.
Allison, under window graphics, change that, the properties, change that to a Y apostrophe S. There you go.
Everybody caught up with it?
I'm ready.
Let's scroll it down to the remaining conditions.
An extra space in between 2 and 3. Yep.
Good eyes.
I'm wondering in 3, should we say uplighting will not, to the extent practical, contribute to light pollution?
Yeah, we don't want to,
Yeah, it will contribute to it, but
I think that was all
Would
the
the three have
conditions.
to say is determined by staff or something? Or?
Well, they're
No,
going to
since
submit
you're-
detailed plans to staff, I think is the implication there, right?
Yes, because you've already made this resolution, so nothing else would come back before you. It couldn't be reopened.
The wording there is is still troubling to me, and I'm trying to figure out what the better word is. The uplighting of signage will be minimized, or will minimize light pollution or the disruption of surrounding properties.
Or will not unreasonably?
Or will,
That's to the extent practical. That's what I was having troubles with, is how do you know that it's the extent practical?
Well, that's why we have to rely on
Staff.
staff,
Yeah.
and then they demonstrate to staff, well, if,
It's minimal.
say you cut it down, and say, well, a 40-watt light bulb lights it up, well, it's not practical, though, because you can't see it from,
Yep.
the road or whatever,
Yep.
so.
what if we said that the uplighting of signage will, to the extent practical, minimize, say it more positively.
That's better, I think.
Is that a little better there?
Mhm.
Yep.
You comfortable with that? Okay.
Ready?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve and journalize as documented case number 19-213 BZA for the Pinnacle Entertainment property located at 6301 Kellogg Road.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Brian Miller,
Aye.
Fred Hayes,
Aye.
Brian Johnson,
Aye.
Rick Hochman.
Aye. Being no further items on the agenda?
We ever going to get back to our bylaws?
Yes, we have to
Yes,
wait for Mr. Powell to get back in town.
Gary's coming back from Malaysia today, so I didn't want to make him come see us.
When he was jet lagged?
Yes, I'm sure.
What was he doing in Malaysia?
That's a good question.